With the abandonment of the Preservation Inlet whaling station, things went pretty quiet around here, with just the occasional whaler or sporadic groups of sealers calling in. And having wiped out the breeding stocks of both whales and seals, these were both now dying industries. In any case, attention was now switching decisively away from southwestern Te Waiponamu towards its eastern coast. Preservation Inlet and the fjords further around to the west were now really backwaters as the first Pākehā settlements began to be planned in Otago and Canterbury. This area was so far away from those settlements and so challenging to get to that it was going to take something pretty special to draw attention this way again. The Acheron survey in 1851 gave preservation Inlet its next chance to impress. While Captain Stokes and his hydrographers and surveyors were busy charting the inlet's waters and coastline, the ship's assistant surgeon, Charles Forbes, indulged his interest in geology. It had long been known that there was coal on Preservation Island, but Forbes was the first to scientifically assess its extent and quality. Landing on the northern shore of Otago Retreat, he examined the island's western cliffs, in which thin bands of coal were apparent. It was, he discovered, bituminous coal, deep black and with excellent burning qualities. It was just the sort of resource that was needed in a young colony in an age which was so dependent on coal burning technology. Captain Stokes promptly added the island to his chart as Coal Island, consigning its 40 years being known to the whalers as the more evocative Preservation Island to the dustbin of history. The island's Maori name, Te Pokaherika, is likewise somewhat prosaic, describing the island's traditional role as a tide anchor for waka sheltering here. An older Maori name, Te Karihu a Tamatea, or the Spade of Tamatea, had a more mythical quality to it, recalling another imprint on the southern landscape of that great Polynesian exploring ancestor, but it too now disappeared from the maps that were made henceforth in favour of the more prosaic Coal Island. It was over a decade before the next official mission to check out the resources of Otago's far southwestern coast. By then, Dunedin had been established and after a slow start had suddenly risen to prosperity on the back of the gold found in its hinterland in 1861. Now, in 1863, the province's first professional geologist, 28-year-old Dr. James Hector, undertook a 6-month exploration of Fiordland to map its geology. His mission, of course, was to look for minerals that could be exploited economically, especially gold, but coal was almost as high on the government's list of desirable resources. Hector and his party spent a week here, looking in every nook and cranny for any sign of gold and finding it, but not in sufficient quantity to suggest there was a payable goldfield in the area. Coal offered better prospects, and Hector checked out the seams that had been identified by Forbes on Coal Island and found others at Gulch's Head. It was by far the best coal found anywhere so far in Otago, but he warned that the seams seemed thin and they were hard to get at. Meanwhile, attempting to leave Chalky Inlet for Dusky Sound, Hector had his shoulder dislocated when it was struck by the main boom of his boat in rough weather, and returning here, his expedition was cut short when they ran out of provisions and had to subsist on fish. But Hector's report at least confirmed Preservation Inlet's potential as a source of high-quality coal. And as the 1860s wore on and Dunedin's industrial base blossomed, Otago's need for coal grew dramatically. Most of it had to be imported from Australia at significant expense. So in 1867, rival parties began the effort to establish a viable coal mining industry here. Despite some torrid weather conditions, preliminary work to develop a large-scale coal mine began in earnest. But then disaster struck. The miners' boat capsized and sank with all their provisions on board. They were rescued 5 months later after eking out a miserable existence here, surviving on birds and fish. A second attempt in 1872 proved no more successful. A mine was sunk just near here by the Preservation Coal Company and coal began to be extracted. This time, bad weather held up resupply by sea and the desperate coal miners finally decided to walk out overland, an incredible 2-week tramp across 100 kilometres of rugged country eastwards to Oropuki, an outpost of civilization in western Southland. And with that, coal mining here and preservation was abandoned. Better quality coal was discovered at Kaitangata and Nightcaps with much more extensive seams in more accessible locations, much closer to the markets in Dunedin and in Otago. And with that, the economics of mining in a remote location like this just didn't stack up. Today, few remnants of the coal era remain around Preservation Inlet.
So our aim this morning is to locate the site of the Preservation Coal Company coal mine that was created back in 1872. It was rediscovered by the Beard brothers 50 years ago in a hillock of dense bush above Otago Retreat, but otherwise there's few records that remain.
Using a 150-year-old map and led by archaeologist Frank van der Hayden, the expedition begins the search for the old mine site.
Largely overgrown, and of course it was on a steep bank. The location was actually accurate enough for us to find it, so we started at the top at the trick station and then just scrambled our way down. It was hard going, but we just had to scramble down carefully through the undergrowth, and then all of a sudden it was there, yeah. And we found it, and it was very exciting indeed. It was actually more accurate than I beforehand thought they would be. It sort of restored my faith in mapping, even in the old 19th century. So yeah, no, they were a lot better than I thought, and it certainly helped us to find it again. I guess that was really the purpose of my trip, to go to all those old sites, a lot which hadn't been visited for 40, 50 years. And actually, yeah, get accurate readings and up-to-date photos.
The rediscovery of the coal mine in this remote location is confirmation of the hoped-for coal boom that never eventuated at Preservation Inlet. But what about gold? Well, that remained the ultimate dream in 19th century Otago, didn't it? And for a short but fevered period in the 1890s, the belated discovery of significant sources of gold made it seem as if Preservation Inlet's best years had finally arrived.